listening to LSU Daily with Matt Musso, your home for all things LSU sports.
Off and running here on another edition of LSU Daily. Welcome in and glad to have you with me. LSU-Ole Miss. Both Brian Kelly and Lane Kiffin took to the podium on Monday to kick off game week and give their initial thoughts on their team and the matchup with the other. We'll let you hear from both head coaches as we go throughout the show today. This is a monumental matchup here early in the college football season with playoff implications, conference championship implications, really any implication you can imagine. This game has it, and it'll kick off Saturday night in Death Valley in front of what is just sure to be a raucous atmosphere that we've seen many times, but probably haven't seen the likes of it to this level since Alabama came in here in 2022. Today, what I want to do is I want to look at one area of the game. One area of the game that looks to be the deciding factor, and it is a stark change from last year's matchup. So we'll get into that because you might be like, oh, well, of course, you want to look at the defenses. You have two high-powered offenses. Who can get the last stop? But it's not in that vein. It is a complete stark contrast from last season. So we'll do that. We talked the other day about the injury to Tre Harris, Ole Miss's star wide receiver, their best player on offense, and the nation's leading receiver. Lane Kiffin did give an update on Tre Harris in his Monday press conference. We'll pass that along to you and talk about how that impacts the game as well. So get subscribed. If you have not already, please get subscribed, like, and share. Set the notification when you subscribe so you know each time an episode is posted. You can find us anywhere, Apple, Spotify, Google, we're everywhere. Well, I guess now it's YouTube podcast technically, but we're everywhere that you get your podcast, so subscription greatly appreciated. All right. So, first, when Brian Kelly took to the podium on Monday, he recapped your bye week.
Last week, obviously, an off week for us. I got a chance to really work on a number of things that needed improvement within our team. As earlier in the season, it wasn't really a recovery week for us as much as it was, shore up some things offensively, defensively, and special teams. I thought we had a great week. Gave the guys the opportunity on Friday and Saturday to recovery, and then we were back at it with meetings and weight training yesterday.
So great bye week for them. Got a lot of work done. You treated it as a work week. All the things we talked about on the bye. After Brian Kelly recapped that, he then dove into Ole Miss. This is all before he even takes a question. This is just his open. He goes into the Ole Miss Rebels. And in doing so, he revealed what he believes to be the biggest difference in Ole Miss from a year ago. And the game a year ago was a big topic in the press conference on Monday. This was Brian Kelly on what he's seen from the Rebels 2023 to right here, 6 games for them into 2024.
Certainly a team that is prolific offensively and playing great defense right now. And I think that's the biggest, I would say, if you look at their team last year to this year, they're just playing great defense, coupled with, the weapons that they have on the offensive side of the ball. So we've got a great challenge in front of us.
The biggest difference is they're playing great defense. And that's where your stark contrast comes in, right? The defense is always a focus in this matchup, it feels like, or at least recently it has been, but in the vein of, okay, which defense can come up with one stop? Because you know the offenses are going to score. You feel like it's going to be a shootout. Who can come up with that one extra stop, get their team the extra possession, and maybe go take the 2-score lead, right? That's definitely what the conversation was leading into the game last year, and I'll be damned, it played out. And this year, again, we're talking about the defenses, but much differently because of how they've improved. And look, we know Ole Miss went out and they beefed up their defense in the transfer portal, right? I mean, you go get Walter Nolan, you get Princely from Florida. You bring back Suntrain Perkins, who has been absolutely awesome. And Brian Kelly actually raved about their inside backers even more than he did Perkins. They've beefed it up. It was all well documented. Were you actually going to see returns? The answer has been a resounding yes. Ole Miss in 2023 ranked 70th in the country in total defense. So far through 6 games in 2024, Ole Miss is 12th in the country in total defense. And I know, I know what you all are going to say. Look who they've played. I mean, they finally hit competition, and it hasn't been going well. You know, they lost to Kentucky. They finally took a step up in competition. It hasn't been good. Well, you know, well-founded criticism, well-founded argument. True. But in Ole Miss's 3 Power 5 games this year, they are 19th in the country in total defense. So, really, no matter the opponent, Ole Miss has been really good on the defensive side of the ball. Like, that's a big jump from 70th to 12th. Big jump. The problem for Ole Miss, as we've touched on previously in the week, at least as of late, has been scoring. The offense has been a struggle once they've taken that step up into competition. That's where you've seen them take the step down. Now, again, I want to be perfectly clear when I say that. Ole Miss's offense is still very good. Lane Kiffin is still the best play caller in the country. Ole Miss has the ability to go out there and put up 40, 50 points on anybody they play on any given week because of the way Lane Kiffin can scheme, call plays, get the matchups he wants. But the stark difference for the Rebels is on the defense, and that impacts this game wildly. Because, for one, LSU's greatest strength has obviously been their offense. And we've talked plenty about, you know, their successes and even failures there, and we can get into a little bit more of that today, and we will throughout the week, and how it matches up with Ole Miss. Because that is the matchup to watch, is each team's offense versus the other's defense. Because while Ole Miss has improved defensively, so has LSU. I know it might not feel like that at certain times, but LSU has absolutely improved. The Tigers from 2023 to 2024, 108th in total defense in 2023 for LSU. They're 66th in the country in total defense in 2024. And Brian Kelly, as he talked about the improvement he's seen from Ole Miss on defense, did the same for LSU. He was asked the difference you've seen from the Ole Miss, specifically that Ole Miss game last year, to now defensively.
You know, from a coaching standpoint and a playing standpoint, we're much further along. That's not the same defense. So, look, the game comes down to when you're playing an up-tempo team like Ole Miss, you've got to get lined up. You got to get your cleats in the ground. You got to tackle. And I think we probably talked about this last year after the game. It didn't tackle very well, didn't get lined up, and it didn't play fundamentally sound football. And so, you know, it starts with that premise, and then you move from there, right? Different looks, try to get the quarterback off schedule, and at the end of the day, you know, try to make any offense, regardless of what they do, one-dimensional.
Not tackling the football well in last year's game is an understatement. That was the game that LSU had 34 missed tackles for 280 yards. They were awful. I mean, that's ultimately where the game was lost, was you couldn't tackle anybody wearing navy blue and red or whatever Ole Miss wore that night. So I understand whenever you look at it and go, well, the jump that Ole Miss made, they're all the way up to number 12. LSU's just a 66. It might not feel one and the same. But keep in mind, you came from 108th up to 66. That's a sizable jump. You take this defense that you have right now and pair it with last year's team in that Ole Miss game, LSU wins that football game. So that alone should give you more hope and optimism going into this. You know, can LSU take the defense they have right now, paired with the offense they have right now, go in and beat Ole Miss on LSU's home, on your own field, on your home field? Yeah, I mean, you absolutely can. I look at this game as the complete inverse from last season. The total in this game is 64.5 currently. Under. It's very similar to the USC game, where that had a high total, and y'all it cruised under. Because both teams made such vast improvement on defense. And that's what you're looking at here in LSU-Ole Miss. Both teams making vast improvements on defense. Sure, you have a great play caller in Lane Kiffin. You have a dynamic offense that has the ability to go out there and score on anybody, on any day, at any moment. But, just like you had in the opener, you have the two defenses that made plenty of changes in the offseason, and you expect improvement. The difference is, in that game, you expected improvement. In this game, you've seen improvement. That LSU-USC game ended 27-20. I could see this one doing the same thing, or maybe going, 30-24, 30-27, somewhere in that range. But this is not going to be the shootout that it was. So all eyes will be on the defenses here and which ones can make the plays. And when they do, can your offense go get points off of stops? Can you play complementary football? What Brian Kelly talks about all the time. And it leads me into kind of the next phase of this. And that is, again, a comparison back to USC. LSU couldn't close that game out when they had the chance. You got those, 3 straight stops in the second half, and you had 3 opportunities to go put distance between yourself and that football team and salt the game away and ice it away, and you couldn't do it. And that was a huge talking point after the game. Brian Kelly went on and on about it in his postgame. We talked about it here plenty. And Brian Kelly on Monday was asked kind of what they learned from that Ole Miss game last season that they can take forward into the one this season.
When you play really good teams and you have the ball last, you need to finish opponents off. You need to control the ball. You need to be the last one with the football. Because when you have 2 prolific offenses and you have great offenses, you have really good quarterbacks. The team that's able to control it late in the game, to me, I think is the difference. And so I think when we look at it from our perspective is if we have the ball late in the game, we need to close out the game. Whether it's running it, throwing it, whatever the case may be, control the game at the end by closing it out.
Similar thing. LSU didn't close that game out against Ole Miss last year either. You'll remember LSU got a turnover on downs. It was Ryan Yates. He jumped up and batted a ball, pass from Jackson Dart down on 4th down, and Ole Miss turned it over. LSU, this is in the 4th quarter. LSU takes the ball. They go down the field. They scored a touchdown and make it a 2-possession game. 49-40 with 8.5 minutes left to go. In the ball game, you're up 2 scores. At that point, you have to be able to salt the game away. And he mentioned when you have the ball last and you go offensively and do it. But Brian Kelly constantly talks about complementary football. You have to do it on defense as well. You have to be able to finish off the opponent when you have the chance. Your defense got the stop. Your offense went down and got you the 2-possession lead. It was then on the defense again to put the game away right there. And they couldn't do it. And Ole Miss scored. And then you turned the ball over, had to punt, and they went down and scored again. They put the game away because then you give it right back to their defense and they get the stop on the last play of the game on that throw to Chris Hilton. They executed that stop scenario that you couldn't. And they closed the game out that way with complementary football. Again, there's plenty of other things that went wrong in that game. 34 missed tackles for 280 yards. Yeah, we're going to bring that back up plenty. That led you to be in that spot, but you were in that spot and you couldn't close the game out. You look at the USC game from earlier, same deal. We talked about it. You had the 3 straight stops. You couldn't put the distance between them. You had the missed throw to Aaron Anderson that ultimately could have put you up as well, and maybe you win the game there, but you didn't execute it. You didn't get it. And after that game, one of the things I said going forward with the next 4 games, talking about Nichols, South Carolina, UCLA, and South Alabama, that LSU would win all 4 of them because they were going to be the better team in all of them, Granted, you escaped against South Carolina, but you won all 4 of them. But one thing I said is because you were going to be the better team, I didn't want to see LSU just go out there and dominate. I wanted to see them be tested. I wanted to see them actually have to work on things. So when you got through your bye, when you got to Ole Miss, hopefully you had improved enough to go beat that team. And one of the areas was closing out games. I specifically said I didn't want LSU to blow everyone out. I wanted them to be in tight games where they had to make plays to win it. And they were. And in 2 of those 4, they did that. Against Nichols, remember, Nichols got the ball to start the second half, went right down the field and scored. That was the long run by Guggenheim, made it 23-21. LSU would answer to make it a 2-score game. Then they forced the fumble on the first play of Nichols' ensuing drive. So there's your stop. You go score, get another stop, and score again. You had the opportunities right there. Your defense got you 2 stops. You had the opportunity to go put the team away, and you did it. I get it. That's Nichols. But you can, again, look at the UCLA game as well, where LSU and the Bruins, they're tied at halftime, 17-7. 17 all. 17 all in that game. You come out, you force the punt, go on the long drive, the 96-yard drive, touchdown. You force another stop. You have an opportunity now to put them away. You go on another long drive, dominate time of possession, score twice, and you're up 14 points. And then after an interception, you ice it with a field goal. But that's 2 opportunities where LSU was in games where they were clearly the better team, and they rose to the occasion and they put the game away. Now, can they go do that against a really good team in Ole Miss? Have they actually learned how to finish? That is one of the biggest questions I have in this game. Has LSU learned how to finish? Because you couldn't finish against this team last year. You didn't finish in your opener. But since then, you've done it twice. You have really you've put teams away in close games when you've had the opportunity. Now, one of the biggest things in doing that is going to be red zone offense, where LSU struggled early in the season. You've been better there. Competition surely matters, but you've been better there. This is going to be a test to see how much better you are. Ole Miss is second in the nation in red zone defense. Second in the nation in red zone defense. So, look, when you get the stop, because as we've said, you're going to get stops in this game. I'm leaning towards the under. When you do, can you go get points out of it and score? And when you have an opportunity to put the game away, can you do it? Have they actually learned how to do that? That's going to be the big question for me in this football game. Now, on the other side, offensively for Ole Miss, yes, the numbers are not what they were in that pre-conference slate. They have not hit 30 points yet in SEC play, facing Kentucky and South Carolina. And now they might be without Tre Harris. We told you on Monday, Harris left the South Carolina game with a lower leg injury, ankle, knee, something in that vicinity. Did not return. It was in the second quarter, and he did not return. Lane Kiffin was asked on Monday for an update on Tre Harris, and this is what he said.
I mean, we don't, as you guys know, we don't really get into much detail on that. You know, he couldn't finish the first half and wasn't really close to going back in the second half. And he certainly wouldn't be playing today. So, you know, we got to get the other guys ready. We got to perform better than we did in the second half without him. We only had 3 points. Now, we only threw 1 pass in the fourth quarter. But, you know, that makes us move people in different spots when he's out. So we're preparing to do that and preparing to play without him.
So, for not normally getting into injuries, he sure got into that one actually a good bit. That he wouldn't be playing if they had to play a game today, and they have to get other guys ready because they are preparing to play without him. He punctuated that cut saying they are preparing to play without him. Now, there are plenty of weapons that Ole Miss has that can hurt LSU. Caden Prieskorn, the tight end, is a menace. That guy is really, really good. But they don't have another Tre Harris. The guy has over 880 yards through 5.5 games. Not even 5.5 games. the nation's leading receiver. He has been their best offensive player. So if they don't have him, yeah, that's a break for LSU. 100% that's a break for LSU. But Lane Kiffin can scheme the other guys like Antoine Wells, like Caden Priestcorn. He can get those guys open and make them hurt you. And the thing to remember, everyone always focuses in on that passing game for Ole Miss and for Lane Kiffin. It's the running game that really gets his offense going. And they've got a couple good ones, especially Henry Parrish Jr. And you could even see Ulysses Bentley start to take a larger role as well. But as of right now, Ole Miss is preparing to play without their best offensive player in this game. And that would absolutely be a break for LSU. On the flip side, for LSU's injuries, everybody was looking at Caden Durham. Everybody was looking at C.J. Daniels and Zy Alexander. Brian Kelly mentioned on Monday, all three of those guys are practicing back this week. So you should see all three of those guys return for LSU. We'll obviously get a much better indication of this when the injury report comes out later in the week. We will know the status of all those guys because it will have to be released. So that is obviously of great help and great significance with this football game. All right, that's going to wrap it up for today. Y'all smash the like, get subscribed. If you have not already, please share. Look, we're into the meat of SEC play as well. I'd love to work with some of you, so we are open for business here on LSU Daily, especially now, as I said, getting into SEC play. If you're curious about sponsorship opportunities, you can email me, matthew.musso@guaranteemedia.com. You can DM me on social media, and we can see if we can work something out, but that would be great as well, especially, as we said, now that they hit SEC and getting towards the stretch run of the season. It's LSU's sixth game. So social media, follow me there as well, at Musso Matthew on Twitter X, Facebook, Instagram, at Matthew Musso1. All of that greatly appreciated. And be here next time for more on LSU Daily.